Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Chiefs, your show every day. Ryan, I'll let you go from here, sir.
Yeah, hey, a lot changing, right? We got a first look at the rookies, got a little bit of a taste of what might come. We're going to run down what we saw early and what you guys should be looking for as the next week goes by. Welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. It's Monday. I'm glad that you guys had a good weekend. I hope that you enjoyed it. We thank you for making us your first listen, and we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day on every platform for free forever. This is going to be a fun show. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, as well as the home of the Athletic Matrix, which you guys came out in record droves this year. Thank you very much. I hope you all use your discount. We have more for you from Rogue APC this year, as well as NFL 33. They're tying in, and we're going to have content for you about team building and draft all year long.
And I'm Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner, and you can find me at Chiefs Corner. Had a whole bunch of articles come out basically on all the draft picks, giving you the breakdown of a lot of what other analysts were saying, what the Chiefs were saying, what some of the players said. Had Ryan's Athletic Matrix in there as well as Raz scores, and breaking down what the cost of each draft pick was for the first 4 years that they're going to be in Kansas City.
That's important because cost is what drives a lot of these decisions, particularly what we saw this off season. And I think, not to take away from the draft picks, but I think the talk right now has to be about Justyn Ross, doesn't it?
It certainly seems to be. He is the one that seems to keep getting featured by the Chiefs. They had him interview. They had a have a good night type tweet, and it was him catching the ball. So that was rather interesting. Real quick before we jump into minicamp, I do want to say one thing that got updated over the last week was with Melvin Ingram's tag. Officially, he is on the Chiefs salary cap right now for 4.4 unless he is signed elsewhere. So that is why there was a huge change in the Chiefs cap space.
Okay. What's it sitting at now with Melvin on board?
14 million and some change.
Okay.
Give me a second. I can give you the exact amount. It is 14,343,273, and that's not even accurate because they've signed a bunch of draft picks, and that hasn't been taken into account yet. I haven't done that. So,
and 38 cents.
Yeah. So you're sitting there probably closer to maybe 12 million right now, maybe. But I think that there's also going to be some other draft picks that are going to be signed. And then you have to take into account the signing bonuses because that's going to take into account. And those haven't really hit the cap yet either. So could be closer to 10 before everything's said and done. And that takes care of everything up until I think Orlando Brown gets signed, which is probably going to happen in July.
That makes a lot of sense. I hope that the Orlando Brown deal does get done before camp, and they're able to just move through that and be on.
Well, it has to get done before camp. July 15th deadline.
Oh, is it? Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
So even better, everyone feels it should be done. So
yeah,
one of the things that does is get you cap space, and that's one of the reasons why the guys that are lower down on the cap ladder are so important. 3 of them this weekend caught my attention. I want to talk about wide receivers first. One, new draft pick, Sky Moore, dealing with a hamstring. Did some individual drills. Perfectly fine with that. I didn't see a clip myself. I don't know if you caught any actual video of it.
I did not.
But I'm perfectly comfortable with that. This is rookie minicamp. He's a second-round pick. He's not going anywhere. So we don't have to see anything today from him this week, next 2 weeks from him. The guy that I think you do need to kind of see something who also didn't practice, Cornell Powell, who's also dealing with a hamstring. Yep. And unfortunately for him, this is the beginning of his road to making this roster and pushing forward and proving that their draft pick in him a year ago was worth that value. I have trouble seeing that, even though, there are a number of things that I would bet on, and him making the roster might be one of them. Our title sponsor today is BetOnline, folks. Go check them out. It's where the game starts. But I'm not going to say that this means anything, but your impression after having been out for the year, not being able to go at your earliest opportunity, does that bother you at this point?
I think it bothers me a little bit, but at the same time, it sounds like Justyn Ross is getting information from Cornell Powell. Justyn Ross. Yeah. Ross is getting information from his buddy Cornell Powell, they both played at Clemson together. Sorry. And I think that's important. I think that him having, somebody there that he went to school with, I think is going to help him. Now, the thing on Powell, do I worry about it a little bit? But at the same time, is it really going to matter when it comes to training camp? I mean, if he's ready to go for training camp and he's ready to go and he takes off and does amazing things, it's not going to matter. Yeah, you'd love to see him available. You'd love to see what he has this week. But at the same time, he's going to be in training camp. That's all at least that's the way I see it. He's going to be in training camp. They're not going to cut him before that.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. And since you mentioned Justyn Ross, to get him in after all the attention, after his plummet out of the draft due to the medicals, I think from what Matt Derrick described, it sounds like he can take a hit and he's just fine. And the stress fracture seems to be alleviated. He's not the most robust guy in terms of his build, but to get hit, on a camp where you're not supposed to get hit and be able to just kind of roll with it, I'm taking that as a good omen. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely correct. And I think that's one of those things where it happens. It's football. It's a contact sport. They're not trying to hurt each other, but both of them are trying to make the roster. So the DB is going to be going a little bit harder than maybe you want them to be going, but at the same time, you kind of get it. So, you hope that they don't get hit and you hope that they learn that you can't do that, especially at OTAs, because that's going to be some other players that you're going to be wanting to, not get hit at OTAs. So I think that's important to get figured out, but I do think that it's okay right now at this point. I think it's good that he was able to take a hit and get up and go.
I like that as well. And, for the future, for those that do want to put something on the line there, I'm sure there's a very interesting prop out there about Justyn Ross, where he lands and if he lands. He's actually right now sitting, I think it's 6th on the depth chart, which is crazy because it's been a day, but we're not too worried about that. But if you want to go check that out, make sure you go to BetOnline because they have everything that you need to make your bets in the smartest way, the best chance to pay off, whether it's NHL, baseball, what's going on in Chiefs OTAs, who's likely to be the favorite for the Super Bowl. There's a lot that you can choose from. They have pods, they have information, they have everything that you need stat-wise to get ready to put that action down. So check them out over at BetOnline where the game starts.
Now, I do want to be clear real quick. I told you before we started the pod that he was 6th on the depth chart. I'm not sure where that depth chart is coming from.
Right.
It's not the Chiefs because I went and looked at their site. I verified. They don't have anything on their website. So that could just be ESPN's depth chart. That could be a number of different things. But the other thing to take a look at is the picture I got of it was that Gordon was in front of Darius Fountain, who was listed right behind him. And he was like, if you want to look at it that way, he would be like 7th. So I don't really know that you can look at it when you're looking at 3 wide receivers listed in the group and Justyn Ross is just the 2nd in the number 3 wide receiver spot. Is that really 6th? Probably not.
It's not. Well, thank you for pointing that out because I'm not trying to hype him up, but just the fact that
the team
might slot him there now. Yeah, just exactly. Just the fact you might slot him there right now.
He interviewed over the weekend.
Oh, did he? Yeah. I didn't see that yet. Okay.
I think he interviewed on Sunday.
Okay.
So,
I mean, a lot of that is pointing in that direction. So it's good to see about it. The big thing for me from what I saw in terms of little video clips, pictures, etc., everybody kind of eased into it. I didn't see any flaws. I didn't hear anything about any problems with anyone other than the hamstring issue. Chanel was out there. Karlaftis was out there, seemed to be running around just fine. I didn't hear much about any specific type of testing them out to do X, Y, or Z. I didn't hear about anything about Chanel or, man coverage or anything like that, trying to test them out there because for those two guys in particular.
He's playing middle linebacker.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. And with Nick out there, that makes perfect sense. He should be the backup middle linebacker.
Yep.
Yes, he's going to play Sam for you, but if Nick has to miss time or whatever has to happen, he is the backup because that's what he did in college. That is super easy to do.
And this is when you get him the reps for that because he's going to move to Sam linebacker as soon as OTA start and Nick is there. So you get him the reps now because he's not going to get those reps later. He's not going to play second team. He's already on the first team. So you're not going to have him play second team.
Yeah. I mean, and nothing, I should have said this at the top, folks. We got to guard ourselves against the Noah Gray phenomenon. Nothing that happens this month means anything. in what we were proven from Andy Reid last year in feeding Noah Gray over and over and over, it did not change the result in the regular season. So we just have to take that all with a grain of salt and keep on moving forward. But I think in the next coming weeks, you're going to see a testing out for both Karlaftis. Can he do some of the things that they've asked the DNs to do in the past, including dropping? I saw maybe one rep of that on his college film. Obviously, I didn't watch every snap that he ever took, so there could be more. But Chanel in particular, I wonder if they're going to try to get him some man reps and see what they have there, see what they can coach up. This is not just, hey, welcome to the league, you are what you are. This is evaluation continued in A, how they take coaching, B, what can you push them to, what can you give them that's new. Still, my favorite quote from Chanel from the night he was drafted was, all these things that you think that I'm good at now, I was terrible at 3 years ago. So like he clearly has been a late bloomer and has way more upside than even I gave him credit for. So I'm really interested to see those two bits.
And it plays into Karlaftis too, because you have to remember what Karlaftis was doing 7 years ago. He wasn't even playing football 7 years ago.
Right.
There's a lot of upside there. Now, is he going to get binned? No, not likely.
Probably not.
But there's still a lot of upside there, and he still has value, and there's a lot of things that he can get done with what he does.
And that's the thing is, this is not about trying to take a player who isn't necessarily naturally bendy, doesn't have the ankle flexion. You're not trying to make him become that. You're trying to take what he does and maximize it. The bull rush, the hands, the first step. And maybe that first step ends up being wide. I saw a few wide 9 snaps from him, and he was fine. He got to the outside shoulder of the tackle really well. It's just what you did after that when a quarterback steps up, because you don't have the bend to go around. And you have to go through him at that point.
Well, and the short arms is going to hinder him as well, so maybe it's even the power into the tackle.
But his hands are good. I think that he'll be able eventually to counter the lack of length with more active hands. If he gets to the point, you've seen Mitch Schwartz do this, where he can actually reach out and grab the defender's hand. If you can do that in reverse, you can counteract some of the length that the tackles are going to have against you.
No, absolutely. And I'm not saying he can't get past it. I'm just saying that's one of the things he's got to work on. That's one of the things he's got to get better at. And it's one of those things that this is the time to be working on that kind of thing. Work on getting your hands, trying to get onto the tackle as quickly as you can. If you can get a nice punch up front, that really is going to help you going forward and help you, just going against any of the linemen. And I will say this. My favorite quote, and I think I'm really going to like this guy, so I got to be careful with it. I really think I'm going to like Kennard. I really do think that I'm going to be probably thinking he has a chance at starting at right tackle this season. I love his attitude. I love that he's got a chip on his shoulder, and I think that is going to be great for this offensive line. And if you look at what they brought in last year, let's go back. If we go back just a second and think about what Orlando Brown said when he came in, it was, that's my quarterback. You're not going to touch my quarterback.
Right.
Kennard has that same mentality, and he is pissed off, much like Trey Smith is pissed off. So now you've got 3 of those guys that are not going to put up with Mahomes getting hit if he's, in the pocket or, regardless of how it happens on the field. They're not going to put up with that crap. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, I do too. And you should, because that goes into the whole way that you go about your work. And for Kennard right now, he has an opportunity. And this is nothing against Andrew Wiley. Andrew Wiley's been a solid tackle. I still think he's better at guard. That's just my preference. But he's been a utility player that's come through for this team in multiple times in multiple years. Yeah. But if Kennard can beat him out, that's a good thing for this team.
That's huge. And it's still good for Andrew Wiley, because Andrew Wiley is still worth what he's getting paid this year. He's still worth whatever his couple $1 million contract is. There's huge value in having that versatility, one, and having the ability to give you somebody that can spot start if absolutely needed.
Yeah.
And this is the thing we still don't know. We do not know about Lucas Niang. And I hope he's able to play. I hope he's able to practice. And I hope that it's a competition. I hope it's a 3-way competition. But we saw what happened last year when you had 2 guys that were kind of injured. And Wiley's not an injured type guy. But when you had Long and LDT trying to come back, Trey Smith was the starter by camp.
Yeah.
That could happen with Kennard this year. Not saying it will.
It could, though.
You're
could. Absolutely right. And I hope that it does, only because I don't want to see multiple changes. I would like to see him take that over, get it done, and be the guy until Niang comes back and can compete with him. That would be the best case scenario, in my opinion, for the Chiefs.
And that's a question of whether or not Niang's going to be able to do that this season.
Right.
And even if he is able to get back and maybe be able to go by October or November, are you really going to want to take away a starter's position unless Kennard has been playing poorly? I don't think you're going to be making a move unless he's playing poorly.
Yeah, that could be very, very legitimate. I think he in particular is still undergoing a transformation that we'll have to see how it pays off and how soon.
Yep. And I am still excited about Niang. I still like his upside. I still think that he could be a good player. It's just a question of, can he stay healthy in the NFL? Because he hasn't shown that he can stay healthy yet. And I know that people are going to say injuries just happen, and that is true. But he has been injured a lot in the last 3 or 4 years. He has not played a full season of football in the last 3 or 4 years. Now, yes, he sat out a year, and I get that that's part of it, but it's still part of it. You have to look at how many games he's actually played over the past 4 seasons.
Yeah, because injury time away, even and any time away, is slowing your development.
Yep. So something to watch for. And we have a lot more to talk about when we start talking about some of the other players that weren't practicing in rookie minicamp. But before we get there, I want to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar. Summer is coming, and it feels like it's basically here, actually. Today it was 85 in Wichita, and I was sitting there just going, man, it feels like it's getting close to summer. I know it's not here yet, but it's really close. With summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations. Throw them in your bags and your kids' backpacks. Make sure that everyone has a bar so they are fueled for summer adventures. Best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and they're delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bar, you can have both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. All Built Bars and Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means that with Built Bar, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCK15 and you'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com.
I want to talk about my favorite thing from this weekend. Okay. And people were surprised and questioning me last week when I was asked about the guy that I'm most eager to see in this team, in this roster, in this preseason. And he came out this weekend and said all the right things, as he wasn't necessarily taking snaps on the field, but he was in with the coaching staff, soaking things up, called himself a sponge.
I know where you're going.
Brian Cook is the real deal. I am just telling you. Like, that attitude of understanding that whatever I've done in the past to get here, that's over. It's about what you do from this day forward. And that's what I love about his attitude. I can't say that I'm shocked at all, because this is what I expected from him, a guy that has done multiple roles and multiple things in the past, and I expect to do multiple roles here in Kansas City. But just to have him come in and have that bit of humbleness and be ready to just learn from the older safeties, like, Brian Cook's going to work his way into this lineup quicker than most people realize.
Well, he could be. We said when we started talking about this draft class, I really do think that the NFL has changed enough, at least for the Chiefs. Their defense has changed enough to where you can really count 3 starters at safety, because they have them on the field enough. They have 3 CBs on the field enough. They have 3 safeties on the field enough. They barely have 3 linebackers on the field enough, which is why a lot of people didn't want to draft a linebacker very early. But I think Chanel is going to give them an opportunity to do different things at linebacker than they've been able to do in the past, because of the way he attacks and the way he gets downhill. So I do think that that's going to change some things, and maybe they won't go to a third safety at times where they would have in the past, because of what Chanel can do. So that's something to watch. But I absolutely love the Brian Cook pick. I agree with you completely. I think that that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. When you see his attitude, you see his demeanor, and you see what he's trying to do on the field. Yes, you would love for him to be ready to go and to get to a point where he could be practicing in full right now. Don't disagree with you at all right in that. But I expect all of these injuries that are nagging people right now are going to be good to go by training camp.
Yep.
All you can hope for.
Yeah.
And if they're ready to go for training camp and the guys make it through training camp, that's all that really matters.
And his injury is a shoulder, I believe it is. I don't remember whether it's a labrum specifically or not, but it's something that you can't really get through contact. So he can take some of the reps here in these OTAs because you're not really getting into contact too much. As long as you avoid that, you should be fine. But when you're not, make the most of it. And that's the thing that I like. He's like, I'm on the field until they pull me off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to keep doing that. And that's what you got to like to see, because it doesn't
That's
matter.
the attitude.
And it doesn't matter if it comes from the third safety or your starting edge or your brand new linebacker. It's got to come, and it's got to be there. And it's got to be a part that isn't just Tyrann Mathieu and Frank Clark. It has to be everybody through the entire defense. 11 guys, honestly, 22 guys, because every backup needs to have the same attitude, in my opinion.
Well, and Trent McDuffie has that attitude as well. So, and Tyrann Mathieu is in New Orleans, so can't have that attitude for Kansas City anymore. But I understand where you're going with that. The thing is, this defense has a chance to take a step forward this season. I really do believe that, because of the talent that was added to this defense. What we don't know right now, and what we won't know until really the pads come on, it doesn't matter in OTAs. It's going to matter in training camp, and it's going to matter when the actual pads come on, not when the shells are on. When the pads come on, how are the corners going to look? How are the wide receivers going to look? Because you can't really see that until you see them actually have the pads on, because you've seen plenty of instances in the past where wide receivers are tearing it up in OTAs and in practices, but once the pads come on, it's a different story. Yeah. Once contact is allowed, it's a different story. I don't think that that's going to be the case with some of the wide receivers in Kansas City, but what I really am curious to see is how it's going to affect the corners. Mm-hmm. I expect McDuffie's going to fight. I expect he's going to have ups and downs. He's rookie. He's going to have that. That's just part of the game. You got to learn. You got to adjust to the NFL. That's fine. And he's going against the best QB. In my opinion, he's going against the best QB in practice every day. So he should be one of those guys that's going to get better with time. And you're going to have mistakes from him this year. It's just going to be something that you're going to have to deal with. But how does Williams adjust? How does Watson adjust? How do any of those other corners adjust? What does Fenton do this year that he hasn't done in the past to differentiate himself from the guys that they drafted? Does Boodle do anything? He was a guy that we thought might be on the roster.
I'm just predicting yes.
Okay, well, I'm just saying there's a lot of corners on this roster that there's a lot of questions about, and you're not going to find out until you're not going to find out until training camp. And I cannot wait for the pads to come on for training camp.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. So that's a first look today, folks. Again, grain of salt, pound of salt, whatever you need to take it with, so that we don't get ourselves to where we were last season with Noah Gray and his fabulous rookie camp and OTAs. It's a starting point. We're going to have more for you every step of the way, all summer long, 5 days a week, just like we always are. Nothing is changing. So please spread the word. Make sure that you're subbed, whether it's on YouTube, like, sub, and hit the bell, or whether it's over on the audio platforms, because this team's going to change its look literally daily. This is like a toddler. It changes every day. And then next thing you know, it's the season and they look completely different. So,
and there's going to I was just going to say there's going to be more tomorrow, because there's one more day of rookie minicamp on Monday. Just want to throw that out there.
So keep your eye on it. We're going to keep ours on it. We're going to tell you every step of the way. So do not miss a show. Thank you for your time today. Thanks for making this your first listen. Check out the draft show for a second, or any of the other competitors, because you got to do your homework on your enemies as well. So thanks for being with us today. We'll talk to you tomorrow.